touch our entrepreneurs out there. They're our brothers and sisters. That's where most of the jobs come from, as we all know. And I know they're seeing some of the most challenging times I've known in my 60 years. So let's see what we can do to help.
Well, you know that we ran a challenge for you and Dean and KBB, and I saw how amazing it went and how many, we only inspired 5,000 or 6,000 negativity in all of the 150,000.
I think it's critical. I think community is important at all times. We're social creatures. I don't mean social like social to just go do social things. I mean that we need each other. We stimulate each other. We cause each other to grow. We share ideas. So masterminding, as you well know, is one of those fundamental principles from one of the oldest personal development books of all time. You know, Think and Grow Rich. This whole idea that when two minds come together, a third mind is formed, and that every time two people come together, a third mind's formed. So you can really put a group of people who's really committed to doing something that matters more than themselves. Kind of insights can be extraordinary. So that's why I wanted to join you for this, and that's why I just sent out my congratulations, because no matter where you are right now, whatever season you're facing, I know there are businesses, most businesses out there are in the middle of winter right now. It's like winter came in springtime, in the form of literally the government shutting down your capability to do what you do for your clients. For most people, some people actually are in springtime already. They've adapted, they've found ways. You know, some industries is easier than others, obviously, but new ways to do things, and they're actually growing and expanding even faster than before. So crisis always either destroys you or it recreates you. It stops you or it drives you forward, and you end up creating breakthroughs. And most breakthroughs do not happen without a crisis. And so this is crisis. Crisis is when your brain can't do what it's done in the past. It can't go back. So finally, if you don't just give up, your brain says there's got to be a way, and you find one. And Pete, I see you're doing that here, and that's why you're able to help the people that are watching right now.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of people are feeling crisis, but they're feeling hope. And Tony, we surveyed this entire group, and like the number one question that came up for us had to do with like, okay, Tony, so much respect and so much love and so much adoration in this group for you. Like it's amazing, and it makes my heart so happy, because that's who Tony Robbins is. I've gotten to experience him behind the scenes, and he is the same front stage and backstage. And you can't say that about many people, like really can't. Tony, people are wanting to learn not only what is Tony doing, because Tony's businesses have been hit, their events, their stages, they want to know what is Tony doing now, but also what has Tony learned from the past with 2008 and 9/11, and you've had a long history in this. Like, what can we learn from your past, your wisdom, because at your crossroads, you've learned a lot of wisdom from the past. And then also, what are you doing right now in the midst with your business to deal with things?
That's a good question. Well, I've lived through a whole lot. I started my business in 1977 at 17 years old. And if you imagine back then, we had 18% interest rates. You know, inflation was going crazy. No one was employed. I mean, it was horrific. And I've always said to people, you know, if you look at the Fortune 1000, the most successful companies in the history of the world, and, you know, you can be born in any economic season, and those seasons last for a while. You know, there's seasons of tremendous growth and excitement. That's springtime, where it's easy to win, things grow rapidly. It's just like starting a business. In the beginning, if you do a good job, it grows easily. It's not that difficult, quite frankly. And then you have the summertime, right, where you're doing the same things, but you don't seem to be getting rewarded. And it's hot, and it's difficult, and it's harsh, and people start to question, man, why isn't this working? You know, like, I've been planting, you know, where's my reward? And, you know, we're not there yet. And then you get to the fall, where all of a sudden, autumn, everything changes color. It's beautiful. You know, things flow. You can buy a house and you have no money and no credit. The stock markets explode to the roof and beyond. And then, of course, what always follows the fall is winter again. And we've had a fall for a long time, an artificial fall. We've had, you know, the longest bull market in history. I wrote the book Unshakable 2.5, 3 years ago, because I knew this time was coming. I sure as heck didn't think it was going to be a virus, and I didn't think they'd make it illegal to do your work, but I knew the economy was going to have to take a hit of some sort. And so it's cyclical. And, you know, if you can do well in winter, of 1,000 businesses that are Fortune 1000 in the world, the very best, over 61% were started in winter. You know, Federal Express was started, and say, what's in winter? It's a recession or a depression. Started in a recession. CNN in a recession. Disney in a depression. Exxon in a depression. Whole Foods in a recession. I mean, I can go through them all with you. It'll blow your mind. So if you do well here, my dear friends and my brothers and sisters, because that's what we are as entrepreneurs, I got to tell you, I know it's not easy. I know it's scary, but you master this area and you will be a dominant player forever. Because I'm here to tell you, winter doesn't last forever. I don't care how long. If this was a depression, you know, it won't last forever. And in depression, winter, there are sunny, beautiful days. It's not freezing cold and horrible every day, even in wintertime, even in a season where people's mentality is about focus on problems instead of solutions. So what have I seen over all those years? I mean, I remember 99, I took a company public. My stock was worth $500 million, $400 million to be exact at the time. I mean, it was wonderful, it was exciting. And then it was 1999, and before you knew it, the tech market, it was a tech company, went through the floor, and I was trying to keep a company above ground, and I pulled it off. We didn't go bankrupt, and so many people did. But oh my God, it took me 4 years of effort. In the end, instead of $500 million, you know, I got like $20 million, and you know, I had to give $10 million of that away to a group of people and paid taxes. And I ended up $5 million for what should have been 400 million. So I've seen these waves before, and I've ridden them. So what do? In every case, you, my dear friends watching, are the leader. As the leader, if you are fearful, and don't get me wrong, of course you're going to be fearful at times, but if you stay fearful, if you stay stressed, you're not going to make it. And more importantly, you're not going to be able to inspire a team, whether you have one person or two, or whether you have 20,000 employees. I have 54 companies. We do over $6 billion in business, at least as a few months ago, and they're across every business from AI to my place in Fiji, our resort in Fiji, to the businesses that I do on the education side, and they're all under attack. I own the LAFC football club. I'm one of the owners, and we built this team from nothing 2 years ago. Built the stadium. One of the winningest teams in history as a rookie season, and now we have no season. We have no ticket sales. Seasons are canceled. We have no sponsorship. Right? We have no television revenues, and we have a stadium to pay for, a brand new stadium, and all of the best employees, the players and employees. So it is not an easy freaking time. So where do you guys start? You got to start with you. You have to get you so strong that you can deal with anything else that's going on. And so there's a couple things that I can tell you in that area. The first is you got to understand this is a time of decision. What that means to me is you better know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you got to hire a virtual CFO, not a freaking accountant. No disrespect to somebody's accountants, but all accountants do is put numbers in the right sections. You can ask your accountant how you're doing. They go, oh, you're profitable. And you go celebrate. And then later on, you go, where's the cash at the end of the year? Because cash is king, right? This idea of profitability, it's an accounting term. That's nothing to do with reality. So you better know what your numbers are, because I used to be, my near-death experiences in the past, where things are going great, economy's going decent or good, and then something changes, and then all of a sudden, overnight, you discover you're not where you think you are. My accountant's telling me I'm doing great, and I find out, well, I thought I had a full tank of gas, and we were on E. I thought I was going 50 miles an hour, and we were going 100 miles an hour, right? So you gotta know your numbers. And even if you're a small business, get some help to do that. And there are people now that do, I have a company that does it too. I'm not marketing to at all, zero. But there are companies that do virtual CFOs, because most small business can't afford a CFO. A CFO takes numbers and they convert them to actionable, action, something you can do to change it. But if you don't know your numbers, you're not going to be able to manage where things are. And you're going to have to make tough decisions, right? And you need to make the decisions now that are difficult decisions. This is where you got to call it tight. You can't be overly enthusiastic or overly optimistic, or you won't make it. That's why most businesses don't make it. Think about it. Half the businesses are gone in a year, and it's easy to get in business now. You can leverage so much of it. You can scale it to other people. But 80% are gone in 5 years, and 96% are gone in 10 years. Only 4% make it. That doesn't mean they're profitable. So this is not a game for the gentle heart. You're going to have to really step up and make it happen, and you're paid for the tough decisions. So if you know your numbers and you got financial intelligence, not just numbers, and if you're able then to make the tough decisions, see what needs to be done and get yourself to do it, then the third thing is really getting yourself to do that massive action. Like, you're going to have to test some new things. You're going to have to try some skunk works. It's like what you just did with your seminar, Pete, spectacular. You said, I'm not going to accept that we can't meet. Let's find another way to do it. Heck, I'm looking to learn from you as far as how you did your new virtual event. So that kind of adaptation is what makes things work. But you got to know your numbers, you got to make the decisions, and the tough ones, that's what you're paid for, and you've got to adapt. You got to flex and test till you find what works. And the more you test, the quicker you make that happen. This is the time you really got to understand deeply who your clients are and what they need, want, and fear so you can make that happen. This is a time for you to do what you're doing here, which is go to people that have made it through the different seasons. That's what these all are. They're seasons. They won't last forever. Winter isn't forever. Some winters are harder, some are easier, some are short, some are quick. But winter comes, but it's always followed by springtime, the next big opportunity. Nighttime, if you feel like it's a dark night of your soul, baby, daytime follows the night always. I'm not being optimistic. I'm just telling you these are the laws of life. You know them, you live them, but we lose track of that. When things are going well, we think they're going to go well forever. When things are going bad, we're going to go bad forever. So surround yourself with other people that have made it through these times. Learn from them. Get that help, right? Those are just a couple things, but none of that works unless you first work on you, because you're not going to make the decisions. You're not going to look at the numbers. You're not going to stomach it. So there's 3 decisions that shape every aspect of your life. And when I made these distinctions years ago, I've never stopped using it for me, and I've used it for my audiences forever. Because I'm here to tell you decisions equal destiny. 2 people can have the same disaster happen in their life. One person is crushed and destroyed and they give up and their life's over, and they explain why it happened by telling me a story, what happened to them. Somebody else uses that to grow like crazy, expand, help more people, and make their life better. So you are that technical. When I tell people, you look at the growth of a business, 80% of the growth of a business is driven by the leader. And by 2 things, 80% is their psychology, 20% is their mechanics or their strategy. Now it sounds funny coming from me because I'm a strategist. I know one strategy could save you a decade. The right strategy could change your entire health, right? The right strategy could change your income. The right strategy could change your relationship. But as great as strategy is, you're not going to use it. You're not going to maximize it. Even if it's in your face, you're not going to notice it if you don't have the right mindset or psychology to make that happen. And that's you. So whether you're a company of you and 2 people, again, or 20,000, doesn't matter. You, the leadership is what drives it. So how does the leader lead themselves? That's the real question. And I'll give you 2 pieces. First, the 3 decisions, then I'll give you real fast the 5 things I did at my earliest crisis, and I always return to it, and I'm doing it right now with me. And then, by the way, I encourage other people to do the same thing, especially my leadership team. So let's start with the 3 decisions. 1, right now, as I'm talking to you with full force, intensity, and passion, and I pause for a moment so you can breathe. There's one decision everyone who's watching right now or listening right now is making. You're making it every moment of your life. Now, you may be making it consciously, but more likely you're making it unconsciously. And these 3 decisions I'm going to show you, if you make them unconsciously, you're kind of controlled by the environment. If you make them consciously, you become the leader that can make it work. The first decision is, what are you going to focus on? And the reason is focus equals feeling. And feeling, emotion, is what drives our action or lack thereof, or the type of action or quality of action that we take. So whatever you focus, even if it's not true, you're going to feel it. If you think that life is over and, oh my God, this is the worst thing that'll ever happen, we can never turn it around, and you keep focusing on that, you will feel that, and you will act accordingly, and you will get that result. It'll be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone's ever come to you and they've said something like, oh my God, you think John's your friend, but he's talking behind your back. He's saying these things and doing those things. And if they're your friend, you go, ah, that's BS. I know, Johnny, you never do that. But if the person persists, maybe 2 people tell you this. Now you might start to question. You might start to doubt. You might go, wow, could John really be trying to screw me over here? And then after you start to question, your mind starts to focus on it, and you start to feel it. And all of a sudden you feel hurt or angry, and maybe eventually confront John. How could you say this or do this? I don't know if you've ever done something like this. I have in my life. And the person goes, what the hell are you talking about? I can remember my teacher, John Grinder. I was on a TV show, and this guy called up and said, and you're doing this, you're doing that, and you're not supposed to be able to do this, and you're not a trainer in NLP, and all this stuff. This is when I was doing NLP in the early days. And I said, look, John Grinder's my partner, the founder of NLP. And he goes, I just talked to John Grinder an hour ago, and he told me all these things. And I was like, what? He's telling me it's on a local radio show in Colorado, actually, where you are. And I'll never forget. And I was so first I was shocked. I was like, that's bullshit. Then I said, fine, let's call him right now. He goes, fine, let's call him. And so we tried to call him on the air, no answer. And so in my head, I'm like, for him to make that phone call, it must be true. So I was so pissed at John Grinder. And I finally reached him. I was like, what the hell is the matter with you? You know I'm a trainer, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, Tony, what the hell are you talking about? I said, well, this guy, is your former partner. He goes, yeah, he's my former partner. For the very reason things you're saying, it's total BS. And I felt like a total idiot. But for a week, I was so stirred up and pissed off and hurt and sad, and it's all because I focused on it in my head. No matter what that person did with me, I allowed them to change my focus. So in other words, whatever you focus on, you're gonna feel. Whatever you're gonna focus on is gonna be real to you. And if you allow the external world to do it, you're a follower, you're not a leader, and you will end up where most people end up who are followers, which is not the quality of life that you desire or deserve. So you gotta take control of that focus. So then let me give you 3 patterns of focus real fast so that we can turn this into something practical for you. Because you say, okay, well, I focus on this, I feel terrible. I focus on it, I feel better. Well, that's obvious. But let's take 3 patterns of habits, because it's not what you focus on once in a while that controls you. It's what you focus on regularly. So let's take an example. Do you tend to focus, all of you that are watching right now, listening, I'm asking you personally. If I were to ask you, do you focus more on what you have or more on what's missing? What would your answer be? If you had to be totally clear. I know you do both, but where do you spend more of your time? Focused on what you have or what's missing? Well, I know, ask people right now, the majority of people are focused on what's missing because it's so obvious, but I mean normally day to day. Well, when I do big seminars, 10, 15,000 people all over the world, 100 countries, I can show you that the achiever's disease, most people who are achievers focus more on what's missing. They used it in the early days to motivate themselves, to drive, to change things. But here's the problem. If you make that your regular habit, you're no longer getting your drive. Once you've done that for years, drive is who you are. An achiever is who you are. It's part of your identity. What's really the problem is, how can you ever be happy or fulfilled when you're constantly focusing on what's missing? How are you ever going to be truly, fully, and certain empowered when you're focused constantly on what's missing? So you can achieve a lot and still be miserable. You can achieve a lot and not have what you really want. Or more likely, you won't achieve as much as you want because you're overwhelmed by the stress from focusing on what's missing. So as a simple habit, if all you did was start to focus on what you're grateful for, as corny as that sounds, what you have, in a state of gratitude, you destroy the 2 emotions that destroy most people's lives and most businesses for leaders: fear and anger. A decision made from fear is almost always the wrong decision. A decision from anger rarely supports you long-term. And so when you're grateful, you can't be angry and grateful simultaneously. You can't be fearful and grateful simultaneously. So focusing on what you have is the place to start. And also, it's really hard to grow a business when you're focusing on what you don't have. But there are things you have. There's resources, there's understandings. We'll cover some of them in this conversation. Second, what else do you focus on? Well, another habit. Let's start with the same question, same decision. What do you focus on? Do you focus more on what you can control or what you can't control? Now, unfortunately, most people in our society focus on what they can't control. And it would be natural to feel that way right now because there are a lot of things you can't control, like whether you can ever work or not in some states or cities or countries. But the truth of the matter is, the only way you can be empowered to change is focus on what isn't within your control. There's lots we can't control. The more you give that energy, the less energy you have to move your business and your life and yourself forward. So you got to train yourself to focus on what you can control. Now, most people come to my seminars, the majority of people are focused on what they can control. That's why they came to the event in the first place, because they came to learn how to master their business or their finances or their body or their emotions or relationships or whatever area of life they wanted to go for. So they believe that. But what happens if you have these 2 patterns, or you've developed them since you've been, in quarantine, which would be easy to happen to even a very, very smart and bright person? What happens if you start focusing constantly on what's missing and what you can't control? What are you going to feel? You and I both know you're going to feel frustrated or sad or depressed or enraged or overwhelmed, minimum stressed, which is not going to produce the result that you need. I'll give you one more pattern real fast. Past, present, future. Where do you tend to focus the most? The past, the present, or the future? Now, everybody does all 3. But if I asked you personally, where do you, in the past, let's say before quarantine, where would you put most of your attention? If you're part of a group like yours, Pete, that are business people, entrepreneurs that have taken their guts and put it on the line, right? That have started their own company, then the chances are they tend to focus on the future the most. Like, how can I make it happen, right? The people that focus on the past the most, rare in my audience, because you can't change the past. And the truth of the matter is, unless you're remembering a really great memory, it's not going to move you very forward. You're trying to drive forward and you're pointing backwards, it's pretty hard to make any progress, right? The present is the only place of power and control, and the present is the place where you can still find joy. The present is where you can still find the things that you have. The present is where you can focus on the things you can control, and the future is what you got to create. So great entrepreneurs focus on present and future versus past. Now, I'll often ask audiences, Pete, and like when I do a UPW, I'll say, how many of you know somebody that takes antidepressants who's still depressed? And like 92, 95, 98% of the room raise their hand no matter what country I go in. Well, how could somebody be depressed if they're taking antidepressants? Because antidepressants just suppress the feelings. They numb you, but they don't get rid of the cause. If you keep focusing on what's missing and what you can't control, or maybe the past that's been painful, or the present that's terrible, then of course there's going to be no progress. So the first decision that everyone watching right now is making every moment of your life is, what are you going to focus on? Right now, there's millions of things. I can look out the window while I'm talking, I can see this beautiful ocean splashing, the wind and the palm trees. I can look and see your face, and I can think about you in Fiji, or you in the conversation we had, let's say in Vegas, or how proud I am of just you as a brother on the path helping so many people, and I could feel those feelings, right? Or I could say, when have I eaten last? Or, damn, it's hot in here. Whatever you focus on, you don't experience life. You experience the habits of focus you have about life. And the minute you make that first decision, your brain has to make the second decision. And that is, what does this mean? And this is where life is shaped, because focus is the first element. But the minute you focus, your brain has to say, what does this mean? Is this danger? Is this opportunity? Because you've got a 2 million-year-old brain, and that 2 million-year-old brain is always looking for how to survive, how to fight if it has to, or flight, or freeze and hope it's not noticed. And we all have that same brain. If we don't condition it, it comes up, especially at times when your business or your life or your identity, because most people, by the way, own a business. If their business is going great, they feel great about themselves. If their business is not going so great, they don't feel so great about themselves. I don't know how many of you can identify that your business is like an expression, a part of you, or a part of your family, or how you live your life. So meaning is everything, and we allow other people to tell us what things mean, and there's a huge price for that. So you have to decide what it means. Is this the end or the beginning? If you think it's the end of a relationship, you're going to behave very differently than you think it's the beginning of a relationship. That's pretty obvious, right? If you think someone is dissing you, disrespecting you, versus they're challenging you, versus they're coaching you, versus they're loving you, you're going to have a completely different emotional response and behavioral response, right? It's a different world. And you get to make that decision. Most of us don't. We let the environment condition us to just respond. Some people get angry all the time because they feel they're being disrespected all the time. Some people get excited no matter what. They see everything as a challenge, right? Is God challenging you right now? Are your problems in your business God punishing you, or all of us? Is this God's gift to us to grow? Or is this nothing to do with God? It's a bunch of human beings that made some decisions that are affecting each other in a not so great way, and we got to do something about it. Your decision about what it means controls the emotion. If you want to jot something down, write down meaning equals emotion, and emotion equals life. If you change the meaning, you'll change. And so your goal is not to be a positive thinker. That's bullshit. I believe see things as they are, but not worse than it is. Find the empowering meaning. That's not about being positive. It's about being intelligent. If you see it as it is, but not worse than it is, you're not going to make the crazy decisions or just give up. Then you got to see it better than it is. Because without a vision, people perish. What makes you a leader is you have a vision beyond this moment, and you got to come up with it. And I know that's not easy, but the way you do that is by putting yourself in the right psychological, emotional states. That's my venue, obviously. And then thirdly, you got to make it the way you see it, and that's strategy. The new strategies that are going to make it work. So I'm giving you a long answer because I just want to get this out. It's like delivery. I want to deliver this for this audience of people because they're my brothers and sisters. We're all gladiators out there with their own businesses. We're the ones on the line. And so how do I make sure that I focus properly? Like I focus on the things that are stronger? How do I make sure that I come up with more empowering meanings and come up with better emotions so I make better decisions? A big part of that is what I did when I had my first crisis, which was when I was 17 and my mom kicked my dad out and she was mad at him and he ran and went to Chicago, left us there. And then next thing I knew, my mom was upset with me. She chased me out, with a carving knife on Christmas Eve. I love my mom. I wouldn't be who I was without my mom. She was a great soul, but when she drank alcohol and took prescription drugs, she was a different creature. And so I had to figure out what to do. And I had a 1967 Volkswagen Bug. Actually, at that time, a 1960 Volkswagen Bug. And then I had no reverse. I'd park on the hill. I worked as a janitor, no place to live, no money, literally chased me out of the house. So I went up and I slept on this hill, I'll never forget. And then it rained. So the next day I talked to a friend of mine, a girlfriend, wasn't an intimate girlfriend, just a girl who was a friend of mine, and they let me stay in their laundry room, and I started to rebuild. And I did 5 things, and then I'll shut the hell up. I'm trying to dump a whole load on you, that I still do today. I've been doing it during this time, because I've had the longest time off stage since I was 17 years old, and I've never been in one location this long since I was 17 years old. So while I'm spending 7 to 11 hours on Zoom every day with all 54 companies figuring out how to keep them all going, I've also done these things so that I will focus properly, I will find better meaning, and I will make better decisions. And the 5 things real fast are: every day, you must feed and strengthen your mind. The first thing I did back then when I was 17 years old, I actually had about 19 bucks in my pocket, I think it was at the time. I took a bus and I went to this spiritual bookstore that I remember seeing. It was about 12, 13 miles away. And I bought this book called The Magic of Believing by Claude M. Bristol. And I read that book, and it talked about conditioning your mind and training your mind. And in the laundry room where I sat there, I took soap and I put these quotes like, only a depressed person, a depressed person's a loser. I knew I wasn't a loser, so I was feeling depressed. I couldn't let myself stay there. I wrote my goals on the mirror. So I look in my face and see my goals and soap across from me over the sink. I mean, I did these incantations over and over again to train my brain. Every day and every way I'm getting stronger and stronger. And I do that for like an hour, going on a run, like a slow jog, just doing rhythm. I would do, God's wealth is circulating in my life. His wealth flows to me in avalanches of abundance. All my needs, desires, and goals are met instantaneously by infinite intelligence. For I'm one with God, and God is everything. I still remember it from back then, doing it every day to condition my mind. And I read, because my teacher, Jim Rohn, used to say leaders are readers, and used to say every day, read 30 minutes a day. Not the shit that comes to your phone that's clickbait. A book, something that's going to give you philosophy or strategy or something that can improve your life significantly. That's what you want to read. And so sure enough, I didn't have the money. I'd go to the library and I'd do that, and I'd feed my mind and I'd read. Rohn used to always say, stand guard at the door of your mind every day. Make sure you don't let the stuff go in, because you're not going to turn your business around unless you can make these 3 decisions strong. You're not going to do that if you don't feed your mind something strong. If you turn on the news, you're going to want to slit your own throat. So if you don't take control of your focus by feeding your mind something good, we know what's going to come out of it. So that's number 1. Number 2, every single day you got to feed and strengthen your body. Pete, I start every day. The first thing I do is something extreme. I jump in freezing cold water, 56 degrees. I'm fortunate to have built these around my homes around the world. And when I'm at my home in Sun Valley, I don't need it. I have one there too, but I use the river. I walk through the snow in the winter and I step right into that thing. It's usually about 39 degrees. There's never been a day where I woke up and go, I can't wait to get in that water. Never. But I jump in with no hesitancy, because I've trained my brain to say, when I say go, we go. When I say do, you do. I don't negotiate with myself and say, well, maybe when I feel like it. Listen, you're not going to feel like doing most of the things you're going to need to do during this winter time. But if you get yourself to do those things consistently, you will dominate the marketplace. And when things change in the springtime, you'll be dominant for the rest of your life. So I started my business in the roughest winter, 78. It made me incredibly strong. It'll do the same thing for you. Every generation has its testing point. This is our testing point. But you got to strengthen your body every day, like going for a run, lifting some weights, strong, intense walk if that's what you do best. But something where the blood gets pumping in, because you got to remember, fear is physical. I'm sure if you've ever been really fearful, you feel in the back of your throat or your gut, that horrible feeling. But courage is also physical. Courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It just means you're scared shitless, but you do it anyway, right? You train yourself. So you got to do something with your body, because you can't separate the mind and the body. You strengthen your mind and your body, you're going to make those better decisions. You're going to focus better. You're going to find better meanings, and you're going to take better actions. Third, real fast, you got to find yourself a role model or a set of role models, because role models make it real. And you find people that have done it during the tough times. What I did back in 77, in the middle of, what they call stagflation, 18% inflation, prices messed up, people unemployed, and I'm trying to start a business. It's like, fix my body, fix my mind, but who has done well in the worst times? And I focused on Sir John Templeton, who is no longer alive. I got to actually interview him multiple times. When I was 30, I interviewed him 2 months before his death back in 2008. He was the first billionaire from nothing as an international investor. He saved 50% of what he earned, and in 1939, anyone watching, we're not old enough to remember this, But 1939, when Hitler invaded Poland, what do you think happened to the stock market? It looked like the whole world was going to end. Stock market went through the floor. He took $10,000. He had 5 he saved and 5 that he borrowed. And he bought every stock under $1 on the New York Stock Exchange he could get, including ones that looked like they're going to go bankrupt. Those investments, 5 years later when the war was over, everything changed. The economy took off and made him the first billionaire and international investor in history. And his whole thing was you make your most money in the times of the greatest pessimism. When the stock market is going great, everybody wants what for their stock? When the real estate market is going great, what price do they want? What it's worth? Or more or less? You know the answer, more than it's worth. And when the stock market drops, when people are fearful, right? When real estate market drops to the floor, what will they give you their property for, their stock for? Anything they can get, right? So there's going to be tremendous opportunity if you can feed your mind and body and find some good role models to do well, because first of all, baby boomers are already, the leading edge of the baby boomers are in their 70s. They're retiring. And 84% of all businesses never get sold. If you know how to run a business, you could take 2 or 3 businesses falling apart, put them together and have the greatest growth of your life during this time if you're not fearful and you feed your mind and do the things that we've been talking about here. There's opportunity without COVID-19. With COVID-19, businesses are going out of style. If you can keep your head straight, there's some tremendous opportunity, but you need some role models. Fourth, and by the way, have more than one role model. And don't make your role models God. There's nobody that's perfect. I used to get disappointed. Why aren't they this?